Hey there, you are listening or watching Dave Does, and this is Music, Life, and everything in between. This is where I have 1 hour of random discussion topic, usually with at least one topic that I've kind of thought of in advance, and then we just kind of see where my mind goes. It's usually, I film these and record these for the YouTube channel and of course for ADK Rock Metal Radio at around 5 a.m. in the morning. The reason I do this is because, you know, you've just woken up, I'm having my coffee, first coffee of the day. And it's interesting where your brain goes, and some of the funniest comments I've ever had on the YouTube channel have been where people have talked about or said, I love where your mind goes at this time of the morning on certain other videos when I've recorded like reaction videos or review videos, etc., or response videos to comments. That's always a good one. So yeah, I thought we'd start this series. This is episode 2 of this series. I start a lot of series. That's the one thing I do find. And you may have seen that on the Dave Does channel, and even seen it on the ADK channel. We try something, we do it for a few weeks, and if it's not getting the response we like, we change it up and we change things around. So we probably don't give it enough time to probably bed in or settle in and see if it works generally. But in this fast-paced world, you need to kind of constantly be on the go, on the go, on the go. That's my attempt at clicking fingers, which I can't do very well. But anyway, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today: music, life, and everything in between. Well, what was I talking about? I was going to talk about musicians, because it's really hard to think about how to phrase this at the moment, because depending on when you're listening to this, what I'm talking about could have happened a couple of months back. So I have to try and make sure that what we're talking about isn't pertinent to the actual specific moment in time, doesn't have any relevance. But one thing I got thinking about was musicians leaving bands, and the thing I'm thinking about here is we've had some in the last few months. We've had multiple in the last 12 months, let's say, we've had several musicians leave bands. I hope high-profile bands, and new musicians come in to replace them. And the question has always been, when I've discussed this with colleagues on the ADK channel or friends in general, is, are these people, they're being told they are part of the band, but are they really? When do you see these people as being part of the band? So we could go back to something like, I don't know, let's say Sepultura, when we had Igor left and we had Eloy. There was a guy in between between Igor and Eloy. Can't remember who it was who filled in very briefly, but Eloy's obviously the one that most people know now. Eloy did multiple albums with them and was seen as part of Sepultura. Even if you don't class that version of Sepultura as Sepultura, they're the ones that have been going on the longest. They're the ones that have been putting out the content constantly, so they are Sepultura. Max and Igor stepped away from the band, so they have no right to that name anymore. They could have just tried to take the band with them and recreated Sepultura, but they decided to step away from it. So the argument of it isn't Sepultura unless Max or Igor are involved in it, well, it is, because they stepped away from it. It's a simple fact. Whether you like it or not, it's a simple fact. And they actually did. That lineup from Sepultura did some good albums. Maybe not as good as obviously the early Sepultura, if you talk about things like Arise, Beneath the Remains, and Chaos AD. All three of those are phenomenal albums. Wasn't too bad or too bothered about Schizophrenia or Bestial Devastation, and I liked Roots I should just say. And Against was just an awful album. Against was just the first one with Derek Green, awful album. Anyway, first to slurp the coffee as we get into the day. Anyway, so we got to the final tour of Sepultura being announced, and then Eloy steps away to join Slipknot. Now, I kind of thought, could he have not done double duty on this one, or was it just a simple case that knowing that Sepultura were definitely finishing after a certain amount of time, like a year and a half tour, whatever it was going to be their final tour, he had to make that jump call, otherwise he'd have had no career? I don't know. I don't know. If Slipknot really wanted him, they would have waited, or they'd have made some count. I mean, Slipknot didn't have to tour. Slipknot could have gone off and done just some headline shows, festivals, and he could have easily filled in and done double duty if he needed to. So I felt a bit cheated by that one, that the big Sepultura ending tour, and you're like, well, Eloy, who's been part of the band for multiple albums, is not there. So you've got a kid come in who's done a great job. I can't even remember his name, to be quite honest with you. He's come in to do the tour, so it's not Sepultura, but so he's not a member of Sepultura. And does this count then? Do you call them touring members only? So they're part of the band, but they're only for touring. So we've just had, at time of filming, obviously, Nico McBrain has stepped down from Iron Maiden, and we've got the drummer from Great. Is it? No, it's not Great White. It's British Lions. Sorry, there's Steve Harris band who's now coming in, but he's not a member of Iron Maiden. I know they said he's the new Iron Maiden drummer, but is that just the live drummer? He's just the touring live drummer. He can't be the drummer for albums, because I mean, how many albums must he do? If they just did one album with him, would you class him as Iron Maiden's drummer? I mean, officially he is, but I don't think he'd ever be seen as that drummer. I mean, if the back catalogue, I mean, let's do it this way. So, if you join a band that's been gigging, but never released an album, and that band then, just before the album comes out, gets rid of the drummer, you come in as the drummer and just record the album and then start touring, you're the drummer, aren't you, at that point? Because you've come in, you've recorded the album, and that's fine. Even though you haven't done the groundwork, you haven't done the bit where you're building the band up. And if the band, let's say, then switches drummer again for the next album, that new drummer's the band's drummer, isn't he? Because he's recording now, and you've got almost 50-50 workload. But if a band does 5 albums with a drummer and then swaps, at what point do you then stop seeing them as a replacement drummer? Because bands are like Megadeth have got this kind of turnaround of musicians. You've got bands like Paradise Lost have had a similar sort of thing. Avenged Sevenfold had it for a while, where you had touring musician drummers. I mean, Avenged Sevenfold had Mike Portnoy doing drums for a while, so that was an interesting kind of lineup. I'm just curious, when do people start to see people as the official band member? How much time has to go by? Does it have to be equal to the previous person's stint in the band? Is that the level that you need to be working at? I don't really know. I mean, the latest one we saw at time of me filming this one probably has changed by the time you either watch it or listen to it on the ADK Rock radio station. Was My Dying Bride announced that they're going out on tour in 2025, which is obviously now if you're listening to this on the Rock radio station. But without Aaron Stainthorpe, they've got a new singer in for it, because obviously Aaron Stainthorpe's off, he's doing his own other side project. But the band was just on a hiatus as far as I was aware. They hadn't split up, so it's a really interesting bit that it's funny. If it had been like, we're going out on tour with a different drummer, no one would have cared. If they'd gone out on tour and said, oh, we're going out on tour, but we're going to have a different bass player or rhythm guitarist in the band, people would be like, oh, okay, it's not the full band, but it's still the bulk of it. But when you replace a singer, that changes a lot of things. I mean, Skid Row have had to do that numerous times over the years, and have various lineup changes. Dragon Force have had the same lineup changes with vocalists, and it's interesting that both of them have had, is it Steel something Heart? I can't remember what his name is. That's the vocalist that was the good vocalist from Dragon Force. But yeah, they've had changes as well. So it's kind of thinking in my head like, what could it mean, especially for vocalists? This is where some of my random thoughts go now. If you're bringing a new vocalist in, if they try to imitate what the previous vocalist did and do just a good cover version of it, do you appreciate that more, or would you prefer that they put their own stance on it? But the problem is, if they do a bad version of it, that's really bad. If they do a good version of it, which is different though, I think I would appreciate that more. And we saw that with Nightwish is a good example of that, where we had Tara, phenomenal operatic style classical vocalist. Then we had Annette Olsen came in with more of a pop rock vocal. Very different, had to do her own versions of the vocal lines that Tara did, because she just couldn't deliver that sort of stuff. And a lot of people didn't like it, but I actually appreciate that she went down that different route. And then of course we've then had Floor Jansen come in, who can do both styles, so there wasn't really any issues at that point. But I don't know, that was one of the things that was kind of popping through my head. I could talk about local bands and stuff like that. That's always a challenge. Bands promoting gigs. but we talk about, it's meant to be this whole thing's meant about music, life, and everything in between. So it can't just always be about music, but it's about how music impacts your life. So I mean, I know a lot of musicians, and I know a lot of people that do venue and events promotions and managers of management companies and stuff like that. And no one is coming up to me saying this is a great time to be a musician or being in the music industry. Every person is literally, any money that comes in goes straight back out onto the event. No one makes really any money. The management companies obviously they make something from the bands, and bands are, I don't know. I mean, the few bands I've spoken to that work with management companies don't really make anything back from it. But what they do is they are growing their stature within the industry. So they are doing more shows, they're playing wider afield, they're gaining momentum. And I guess that's what you're paying out for. Because they're giving money to management companies. Management companies are making sure they're getting booked onto gigs that they wouldn't necessarily have gotten. And that's giving them better exposure. Those management companies help promote those events, so you're getting better exposures. Whereas something like local bands, like I play in with Telescribe, and friends of ours like in Scarlet Envy and so forth, they're doing everything themselves, and they're obviously doing their promotion, they're pushing their shows with the idea to try and get their local gigs. They're posting on their own Facebook pages and stuff like that to promote. But there's only so much you can do. I mean, what would people do to balance? I mean, everyone I know works in a normal day-to-day job. Some work in offices, I've known guys that work in car dealerships, I know people that work for the council, people that a lot of musicians do gardening, landscaping like me. Maybe it gives you the freedom, the flexibility you need for going to gigs and stuff like that, so you can book the time off. But you almost literally, being in a band is a full-time job. Not just like the writing, recording, which is the thing that you used to be able to do. Go back to everything up until about probably the early 2000s. Up until about 2008, 2010, I would say. You could balance it out by being... The cycle of a band would be... spend quality time writing, book your tour, go out, tour, shows, merch, CD sales. That's your kind of cycle routine, and you'd go back down. Social media wasn't a massive thing. It was big in the early 2000s. I mean, it still is. I mean, you were talking like, if you talk about 2004, around that area, you're talking MySpace before Facebook was really the way to go. And Snapchat and Instagram and Twitter and all that sort of stuff had really kicked off. But by the late 2000 or around the 2010, everything else was taken over. 2013, 2014, we get streaming platforms, and that basically just tanks the entire industry. But hey, anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yes, I was talking about, so what's it like? How do you do it as a band? Because it is a full-time job. I'm obviously doing ADK. I say obviously at this time of year, so when I record these things, like for YouTube and specifically for the radio, we record our episodes way in advance, because for ADK radio I record 10 shows a week, so that's 40 hours of content I need to do a month. So with 40 hours of content that need to be recorded every month, it's not something I can just do on the cuff on the week of. So I have to record all these in advance. So we're actually recording this back in early December, when I'm actually recording this music life and everything in between. Where's my head gone there? Oh yes, that's what I was talking about. Yes, bands. So I have to, apart from obviously doing drumming for Telescribe, and we're sitting there, we've got rehearsals in 8 days time at the time of filming and recording. We've got 3 new songs to work on. We've got a cover that we're working on, which will be awesome when it drops. Some point early 2025, hopefully. Once we get it recorded and get a music video shot for it. But we've got that in the plan, so I've got that in the back of my head. I've got to go and do some work. I'm lucky enough, I've kind of planned out all my drum parts anyway, so until I get to the rehearsal. But we're testing a new in-ear system. We've literally got 3 hours to get through 4 tracks, plus go through the in-ear system and get all that sorted. So we've got to kind of really compartmentalise like 40 minutes per song, plus setup time and pack away, stuff like that. So anyway, yeah. Not even 40 minutes, about half an hour a song, really. Maybe 40 minutes at a push. Yeah, 40 minutes. That should do it if we're quick. But on top of that, 80k takes up so much time, especially the radio at the moment. So, God, 5 a.m. Jesus, who gets up at this time? And I've been up at half 3 this morning. I was up taking the dog out, took the wife to work, breakfast, you know, trying to get myself organised so that at 5 a.m. I can actually record this episode. We're a quarter of the way through the episode already. Look at that. It's amazing how time flies. But yeah, time-wise, as a musician, as someone working in the industry, it's an nightmare. I'm lucky enough that with my... As it's December at the time of filming this and recording this, it's the quietest time of my year. So I don't, as a gardener, I don't do a huge amount. It's boggy, it's wet. I don't do a lot of tree work. I don't do a lot of fence work. I could do, I just choose not to. So I effectively, from December through till March, I shut down my business. There's the occasional one day, like this week, there's 2 days this week that I'm doing some work, and that one of those is a fence job, but it's an existing client who I said I'd help out and do it. But generally I wouldn't have been doing work otherwise, and so that gives me my time to focus now on 80k, on YouTube channels, stuff like that. Try to work on stuff over the winter. But if I didn't have that, there is no way on earth I'd be launching 80k radio. There's just no way it'd be physically possible. Not just involved in the stuff that you do, and this is the same for bands. There's so much you can do as a band yourself. So, and I do this for 80k. I'm like, create content, post it on YouTube, post it on Facebook. But that's just the start, because unfortunately you post something on Facebook and it just gets absolutely instantly buried. Because unless you've got followers, no one's going to see your content. So you could post it to a general world unless they're following you or they're friends of you personally. So it's really, this is saying, just a tip for bands, if you're going to post it, when you post something about your band, make sure everyone in the band also posts it on their own social pages, because it's amazing how many of your friends who like your band are not following your band. Make sure you do your @followers, but don't do it for everything. It's so annoying on socials where I get my notifications going, you were tagged in this post along with others, and you go in it and it's just like, hi everyone, just checking in @followers at everyone, and I'm like, I just stop unless it's something that's really important. I do it occasionally for like show announcements. So if 80k, or when 80k puts on our 80k presents nights, and we've got 12 of those for 2025, we've got some amazing bands booked for the year. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But when I put those, yes, I'll post out at followers, but then I'll only do that once. After that, I'll then post generics to the groups. I'll tag some specific people, tag the bands. Frustratingly, there'll be times where we've got gigs coming up and I go on the events or go on the pages of the bands involved and there's no mention of the gig on their socials. And I'm thinking, hang on, I've been sitting there banging away about these gigs for the last month and you're not even mentioning it to your followers. And the weird thing is, I can post it to my followers, but that's got absolutely no guarantee that any of those are going to be interested in the bands that I'm trying to promote at the time. The most important people to know about that gig are going to be people that follow in the band, and it's the band's job to promote themselves. I don't expect them to be knocking off about the gig constantly, but I do expect it to be up on their bloody Facebook pages or Instagram stories and stuff like that, because we need to get people through the doors. Not just from the point of a promoter, because we lose money on every show at this point in time. I effectively go to work in my gardening business so I can earn enough money to put on event shows and effectively just throw that money away every month. So I'm like, here's 200 quid. That's going to be thrown in the toilet because I have no idea if I'm going to get any of that money back. Sometimes I get close to that back, sometimes I don't. But the most important thing for me doing that is to ensure that bands have people there. I just want bands to have an opportunity to put on shows. We film the shows as well, which is great. So we put cameras up, we film it, we take the footage, we send it to the bands and go, here's multiple camera angles from your set. Feel free to use it, do something with it, promote your band, do stuff on socials, get yourself out there, stop posting crappy rehearsal clips, get something sorted, cut this footage together with one of your songs. Do more is what I'd say, because unfortunately there is, in this day and age of social media, there is so many bands. I mean, I get inundated, or I did for a while, because I was posting about bands sending me their information about gigs. And when I did that, I was just getting just email from bands, which was brilliant because it gave us this massive list. But some of them are so far away. I was like, it's going to take you 4 hours to drive to come and play a show on a Thursday night. It's not worth it for you. However, I've got their details, which means if I get a Friday, Saturday, or a Sunday show, then I can be like, look, we're putting on an all day on a Sunday. You'd be great for doing this. Why don't you come down and do this show? Which all really depends on the 2025 schedule. If we have a really good year on 2025 and we really pick up the followers, the ADK rock and metal radio shows, if the ADK YouTube, which is now moving from the ADK rock and metal channel to the ADK rock and metal network, if that works, which is something we weirdly, this is what is it? It's the 9th of December when I'm filming or recording this, so it's probably about a month before it actually goes out on the ADK radio station, although it will be on the Dave Does YouTube before then. At that point in time, I've lost my train of thought already again. Now, see, this is what happens when I'm this time in the morning. Oh yeah, YouTube. So at that point, I'm probably will have announced it on. But at this moment in time, I haven't announced anything on YouTube. But the idea for the YouTube network is we're a monetized channel. We're ADK rock and metal, but you've only got 3 guys talking about rock and metal on ADK. And we want it to be a more diverse channel with more content creators, more people doing rock and metal stuff, more content coming out of different people, different viewpoints. And what you've got is you've got loads of YouTube channels doing it, which is brilliant. However, there is a lot of new people that want to get into it, and it's a very tough market to do. The question is whether they can earn money doing it. Can you make revenue? And you have to hit your 1,000 subscribers. You've got to hit your 4,000 watch hours. We've already achieved that, so we can monetize videos. So we're inviting creators that are doing the sort of content that we want to do on our channel to come out, put content out on our channel, and now called the ADK Rock and Metal Network. And by doing so, they can earn revenue from their videos. We gain a little bit of that revenue, obviously, to help us fund the channel to grow. But the bulk of that money goes to the creator, and also they're not locked to us in any shape or form. They don't have to stay with us. If they suddenly have a video that blows up and people are really interested, great, it helps us out on our channel. But it means that they can then go off and start a channel, and they'll instantly kind of be able to get their subscriber counts up to where they want it to be and get their 4,000 watch hours, and then they can go off and do their own YouTube channel because they've already built up a base. It's harder to build up a base from scratch. So it allows creators to come out, try new ideas out without taking the risk on their channel. We can take the risk on ours, and gives them a chance to earn some money or try to earn some money on YouTube, which is very, very challenging because we don't even do that. So, I love my coffees. But I didn't put enough sugar in. I have sweeteners and it just doesn't taste right this morning. Right, have we got any other topics? I don't know actually. Where's my head going this morning? I was thinking about doing some guitar work today. I know it's a bit weird, music, life and everything. Well, it has to be, it's music is what we mainly talk about. So I'm sitting here, I'm surrounded by guitars, got loads of guitars. And I keep thinking about like writing. Here's the thing, is I tend to play or write riffs mainly 6-string. Usually in D, sorry. I'm not really a drop, like a drop C tuning or anything like that. I just standard tuning, just drop it to D tuning, not E. But with Telescribe we play in A, I think it is, on 7-string. And the issue is there, I don't really write anything in 7-string, but when I write songs, if I want to use them, they've got to be used in tellers. So I can write in D because we do play in D, but we tend to think about whether it can be transposed down because my tone's not great. So I'm constantly having to think about like if I'm writing for me or if I'm writing for the band. And I go through stages, and I wonder how many other people go through stages with your writing. Like you'll go through a phase where you'll write loads of songs for, in a 2-month period, you'll just be out like knocking tracks out left, right and centre. Here's another song, here's a riff idea, here's a riff idea. And then you'll go for months with nothing. I've not written anything since we did a song, can't remember what it was called now, Light of the Avatar or something like that. It was a demo, which is actually going to be one we're going to work on with Telescribe in like 10 days time. We're going to be taking that in the studio to see if we can work that into, thrash it into an actual track. But the apart from that, that was something that came into my head. I wanted to do something a bit different for Telescribe, something that was a bit heavier, some double kick stuff in there, something I hadn't done on the previous song. So that was why I approached that particular song. Apart from that, though, I just haven't been able to. I've picked up the guitar 3 or 4 times and just nothing, absolutely nothing. So I've been completely uninspired. I pressed record, put a riff down, and deleted it and just turned it off because I was like, no. And do you really? I mean, do people really want to work? Do you, when you've got so little time in your life, do you? Is it an escape to write, or because I sometimes feel like I'm writing because there's a need to write something. There's a need to come up with ideas. Versus I'm writing because I feel the inspiration to play. There have been times when I've had the inspiration to play. It hasn't happened for a very long time for the inspiration to play point of view. Same as drum covers and stuff that I've done. There are times when I feel completely inspired. Now, we have a dog now in our house called Smudge. And yes, he's just looking at me now. Yes, I can see you over there, lovely boy. Hello. Which means playing drums is just complete, like, never going to happen. Just never happen. I've tried it a couple of times, and he sees me hitting drums as a great time to play. He thinks it's playtime and that we need to jump around and go nuts, which is great, except for not when you're trying to record drums, so I can't really do that. But yeah, I don't know. Having the time to actually prioritizing time to write, or feeling the inspiration to write when there's so many other things you've got to do in your life. I mean, I'd love to show you my workflow. I mean, even after filming this and recording this one for the rock station and for Dave Does, I've got today I've got 10 video reviews that I need to get through this morning, or at some point today I'll need to do. I've got an event coming up in 10 days at the 66 bar that I need to get onto the promotion of. We've been promoting anyway, but we're still not getting enough ticket sales, so we need to get after that. I need to chase up the bands on that. I've got the shows for next year. I've got the venue to speak to about some of the promotional events, invoices to chase up. I've got gardening work scheduled for Wednesday that I need to contact suppliers about, so I've got to get that sorted out, and make sure I've got the right tools, sort out my van, because I haven't been in my van for a week. We've got dog training to do because he's only been with us about 6 weeks, and I've got to train him up to do stuff. So we've got to do some like absence training. So when basically so he's used to staying at the house alone because he's not had to do that yet. So we've got to stop that today. Shopping, you name it. It's an absolute like mess. So being a musician, there was a point to why I started this conversation, but oh yes, being a musician and trying to do this as your job. So writing, touring, then you've got your social media. This is just what I've got to do today. I should get around to doing some Telescribe posts and social media, but I need to create some content. I've got to create a video for the 30th of January show to start promoting that, and get onto that one before I start even thinking about the February show. That'll be the one I need to start promoting at the end of December, so that we've got video content going out for that. But I ain't getting paid for any of that, so that's the thing. So I'm sitting at home, I've got this time off over the winter, I've got it. But if I was working full time doing my gardening job at this time of year, there is not a chance I'd be able to get this done. I mean, I'd spend the evenings working anyway, but there's no chance I'd get it done. I mean, we were talking about, myself and Andy from the ADK Rock and Metal channel, we were discussing yesterday about the live stream. We do a live stream every Wednesday, and I just sort of said to him, I was like, it's not really doing anything for ADK, so should we stop it? Because it's something we do. I mean, we get together, we talk about news events for that week. But by the time we've talked about them, that news is old. So do we need to be better at every evening scheduling 15 minutes to talk about the latest news? Is that the way we have to go? Like, it probably is. But then we've got to make sure at... Sorry, I'm crying, it's 5 in the morning. How's everyone coping? Jesus. It's not 5 in the morning anymore, it's like 5:30. But yeah, do we have to plan in every evening 15 minutes to ensure that we get this content done? Maybe that's what we have to do. It's so much, and this is the problem. Bands, musicians are not making money. They're out on the road, they're having to do this, and this is it's very stressful. It used to be almost that you could make a living, didn't have to make a great living, but you could make a living going out being a band. Luckily, I mean, certain things we like. One thing that you can get down with is costs, because you no longer have to pump out as much cost on having so many CDs in advance, yada yada yada, that you used to, because everything's now streaming, which sucks. I am completely anti-streaming platform. I hate streaming. That's why one of the reasons we've never really done the ADK. We have got an ADK streaming platform, and that's just mainly to try and help bands out as much as we can. Not necessarily for us to go, wow, look at ADK, we're going to really promote, check out our favourite bands and stuff. It's like, no, we'll just put some playlists up there. If it gets you some extra views and gets you some extra lists or listeners and etc, like that, great. We're helping the grassroots bands out, so it is all kind of underground grassroots or bands that we've covered on the ADK channel, but we're not really going to be pushing any mainstream. But is that become a thing now as well? Because the amount of, when we started up about the ADK rock and metal radio and started approaching people, or people approaching us about doing them, everyone, when I asked them about what shows they were going to do, they were all like, yeah, we're going to be focusing on grassroots and underground music. And I just kind of was like, wow, everyone's trying their best to promote the underground scene. But is it better though? Would it be better though to have some focus on underground, but mix it in with commercial? Because that's kind of what the way I've done one of my shows, which is called Bands That Deserve Your Love. So it's 1 hour of bands that are great bands, but you probably haven't heard, you either may have heard their name but never really checked them out, or you've never heard their name, and they may be established in a certain area, in a certain scene, but haven't really crossed over. So they might be good in America or well known in America, but not really well known over in the UK or in Europe, stuff like that. But what I have done is I've also thrown in some underground grassroots metal bands into those playlists. So I think in my first playlist I had bands like Bad Wolves in there, but I also had bands like Before the Sirens and Scarlet Envy and stuff like that. So for me, that works better, mixing in some name brands or semi-name brands with others. Weirdly, I haven't played any Metallica. In all the shows I do, I've got 2000s metal, 80s rock and metal, and I've not put any Metallica. I've got new metal, which it wouldn't be in, modern metal, it wouldn't be in that. Although I don't do a thrash metal hour, so as I don't do thrash metal, I can't remember who's going to be doing thrash metal. It's either Kirk or Andy, but they haven't done it yet. At the time of recording, they haven't done their thrash metal, which I should chase them up for that. Yes, my micromanagement skills. I've got to chase these guys as well for content. I know we've got, at this point in time, I've still got to do 2 hours of death metal with Andy at some point. Right, we've just gone past our halfway mark of the hour. I've rambled and rambled on. What should we look at? Let's see. I mean, sometimes I like to go and check out latest news, because sometimes in the news, now obviously this is going to be quite difficult for different people because it varies at what time of year, but it's weird. I do read the news sites, and a lot of the stuff that goes through on these rock and metal news sites isn't news. It's just like 20 years ago, Dimebag Darrell was slain on stage in Ohio. That's not news. That's 20 years ago that came out. But maybe it's just a case of just remembrance that they like to put that in. What else we got? We've got anything in this week that's actually still talking about Black Sabbath. The time Black Sabbath forgot they fired Geezer Butler. Okay, could have been an interesting story. Who knows? Yeah, see, this is one that's come up now. Now, it's obviously different for you guys listening to the radio, but Doom Metal Legends My Dark Brother announced a new singer for their first ever show without Aaron Stainforth, which we're actually going to get into that on the ADK channel on a Wednesday in more detail. Because it's quite a good way of doing it. But yeah, I don't know this. I go through this. It takes us. We go through like the entire 7 days worth of news when we do our weekly live stream, and we manage to pull out 4 stories at best that are actually stories. Most of it's just so and so band announces their new album. Last album was out 2 years ago. That's just the talk. That's just their album cycle, isn't it? I mean, it's like if it's the first album in 20 years or something, then yeah, announce something. But if it's like, oh, they've brought out their first album in 3 years, wow, that's kind of roughly about what it takes to do an album nowadays. But yeah, that's a bit shit. Okay, what else we got? Have we got any interesting news? Let's have a look. Anything that's going to make me... Maybe there's something that's just normal news that's interesting for you at home, music, life, and everything in between. No war, death, famine, destruction. People lost their house due to the storms. Wars going on in different places around the world. So pretty much the same as normal. Brexit. Let's talk. No, we're not going to talk. We're not going to talk about Brexit. I could talk about Brexit and about the impact it's had on bands. I mean, I don't. As a band that's never toured Europe, did America, but never did Europe. But visa restrictions, transportation costs, etc. So what was great about being in a band, I guess, for when we were part of the European Union and we were all part of, we could do that, was we could just travel. I mean, why would we have ever left? I mean, we still had our own pound. We never took on the euro, so it was great. We had that command there, so we could work on the differences between the price between euros and pounds. We were following the same red tape as Europe, which meant transportation of goods between the United Kingdom and Europe. We could just send stuff freely with no worries. And then we left. And now bands have got to apply for visas. So if we're in the UK, we have to go to Europe and play any European shows. You've got to get your visa sorted out. Whereas all the bands in France, Germany, Belgium, Spain, etc., they can just transfer in between, move around, get without no visas, just play shows. How stupid were we in the music industry to, or people that worked there, to have not thought this one out as far as the government and the people that voted for it? Who the hell voted for Brexit? Who was the stupid sods? They're the people that believed in the NHS, £400 million or whatever it was. They said would go straight back to the NHS. That didn't happen, did it? Morons. Yeah, it's amazing how I can make a cup of coffee last an hour. So 36 minutes in or so for this, and I've still got 2/3 of my coffee, but it will be cold by the time we get to the very end of it. But yeah, I do worry that we have got to the stage, like I see the European festivals and bands here in the UK, we've got to be so careful about trying to book shows abroad, because you've got to plan so far ahead, sort your equipment out. But everything's gone up in price apart from local concert tickets and local gigs. So what's the worry for bands is that you're charging £6, £7 for a gig. Although we even try and push ours up to about tenner for our local shows. On the door, that is £7.50 in advance, save some money. But you're paying a tenner, up to a tenner for a gig. But it was like a £5 for a gig 20 years ago, so it hasn't gone up in line with everything else that's gone up. It's crazy when you start looking at things like transportation costs. So if you've got a van with a driver, let's say you're not going to have, you need a small tour bus or a tour van with a trailer or a compartment at the back for your gear. You're gonna either crash in the van, which is it's not a great idea if you haven't got actual sleeping compartments. But let's say you're booking some sort of hotels, the cost of going on tour. And then you're not even charging like a decent price for tickets. I mean, what we should be seeing is bands like Taylor Swift and Metallica. I mean, Metallica, just don't get me started on them at the moment. But bands like that should be subsidising those sort of tours if they're going to charge £500 a ticket to go and watch them play. No. They shouldn't be getting that. A lot of that money should be going back to grassroots and bands, etc., who can apply for it for grants to help them, support them on tours and stuff like that, so bands can go out, and that keeps the price of those tickets down for viewers or for fans. Personally, what I would say is, like, big bands, there should be a cap. If you're playing Wembley Arena, there should be a certain price that is a maximum. Let's say £150 a ticket. That's your absolute maximum that you're going to be charged, no matter where you are. It's £150 per ticket, 60,000, and then bands can go, well, if it's £150 a ticket and it's 60,000 capacity, we want 5 million. Well, there isn't 5 million to give you, so you're either going to have to lower your pricing yourself as a headliner to match that. You have to downgrade your stage show, because I mean, does it make a difference if you were seeing someone like Metallica and they're like, oh yeah, we need to be paid this much because we had this amazing light show and stuff. I remember Metallica playing the Escape from the Studio, just a few big stage lights, flat stage, and a few ramps running around. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal performance. Why do they have to have a stage in the middle with pyrotechnics and things and cubes that come down? And I don't care. I really don't. I'm there for the music, not for the freaking light show. You're not Pink Floyd, guys. Just chill and give me a metal rock show. Maybe it's because their music isn't that good anymore, because they can't perform the way they used to. I mean, they're in the zone of the Rolling Stones nowadays from 20 years ago. That's effectively where they are. And let's be honest, that's not a great show either. Or that wasn't a great show back then. You're there for the music. We just want to hear the music played well, and not pay £500 a ticket to go and watch them. I want venues to put a cap on the total amount of money. That way, rather than having to then feed back, yes, bands can then have their money, but they don't have to feed back. And guess what? If you only have to pay £150 for your ticket, you got a bit more money to go and watch local bands instead. Because I'm sick of hearing from bands going, I really want to support local bands, but I've just spent out £500 to go see Linkin Park because I have to go and see them, because when else will I get a chance to do it? But like, now means I can't actually afford to get a ticket. I mean, we had the Sick New World Festival cancelled in Las Vegas because they couldn't afford to pay the $5 million for Metallica and the $5 million for Linkin Park. I mean, £10 million for two headliners is ridiculous. They already said they'd have to sell out 60,000 capacity at almost $500 a ticket just to break even. That's the worst model to imagine. And to be honest with you, Sick New World was a great festival in 2022, 23 and 24, focusing on new metal and the alternative scene. So bringing in a generic band like Metallica is one of the worst things they could have done. Why wasn't Korn there being the headliner? Would make more sense. You could bring in something like System of a Down or Deftones, or I mean, System of a Down was more of an alternative than a new metal, but they were off the wall. Would have worked brilliantly. I don't get why Metallica keeps getting put on them. They're a legacy band, new content. I mean, there was 72 Seasons, bloody awful album, mediocre rock. Without it was basically like a combination of all the leftover riffs from their last albums, all the way back to Load and Reload, except for Load and Reload actually had some songwriting ability in them. Saying that, I didn't mind Death Magnetic. I didn't mind Hardwired to Self-Destruct. They weren't amazing albums. They weren't bad. But 72 Seasons, I did listen to it, and I just thought, if it didn't have the name Metallica on it, this would be a grassroots band that wouldn't have got out of the small venues. It's as simple as that. That's not legends or masters of metal. That is not the best band in the world. They haven't been the best band in the world for 20 years, but they're still revered up there. Not by me, but let them go out, let them do their legacy shows like Slayer did. Come out, do their big festival headliners. That's what Metallica should be personally doing. I want to see the other bands coming through. I want to see better bands going up. I mean, bands like Sleep Token are so much better than Metallica as far as what they're putting out, as far as their stage performances and what they're doing. And so I'm glad to see that they got their headline for downloads. So that's great to see. Metallica shouldn't be on there, but they're always going to have a demand for bands that absolutely love it. There'll be some diehard loyalists out there that absolutely love Metallica and will hate me for saying that. But I've got all the Metallica albums. I do have them. I do listen to Metallica, but was so disappointed by hearing that they're after £5 million to play a show. That's just taking the piss right royally there by Metallica. They need to be ashamed of themselves. I mean, what do they need to do? Buy another house from that gig? It's disgraceful. 4 guys and asking for £5 million to play a 2-hour, or probably only an hour and a half gig. I mean, most people. Just think about that. Yes, you've got your stage crew. So let's say it's only $1 million each. Oh, I've had to give up some money. I've only got $1 million for playing drums for an hour and a half. Really, Lars? Disgraceful and all of that. And now, guess what? Because you've done that, because of your high demands, that festival's got to finish. And you've just ruined it for all those other bands on the bill because of Linkin Park and Metallica. Now, they should never have been offered it in the first place. Maybe the venue thought, actually, we can just bump the ticket prices up and it will sell out. But guess what? It didn't happen. Only 20,000 people bought tickets from the 60, and they were like, we've only got a few months to go. Do we really reckon we're going to shift another 40,000 tickets in the next couple of months? Probably not. Let's cancel the gig while we can. But they probably had a get out clause which said if they cancel within 5 months or something like that, or 4 months, then they don't have to pay any late fees, or they don't have to pay any like get out of jail card, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, is it a subsidy? No, not that. Cancellation fee or something like that. It would be something like that. So yeah, they didn't have to pay any cancellation fee by doing it. So that would make a lot more sense that that's why they've done it. If they'd waited any longer and had to cancel, then they probably would have had to give out a load of money out, and then they'd have to claim on insurance, and the insurance company wouldn't have paid out for something like that. So yeah, anyway, I went off on a right old tangent there. We started on Brexit, didn't we? Okay, yeah, random today, random. So what does the day look like for me? I have no idea, because you're listening to this in either whenever this comes out on YouTube, or you're listening to this in January, so it could be all over the place. But apart from now having a really sore throat from talking for 45 minutes in a row, what will my music life and everything be? Do you know, this is going to be my last year, I reckon, of music. I don't know if I've ever said that. So I feel I'm at that age where live, if things don't go not necessarily the way that I want them to go, and I wonder if a lot of other musicians feel this way. There is a time when you can step away from being a musician and you can feel at peace with it. And I did a few years ago, so back in 2014 when Nothing Gained kind of petered out, because we had tried. I mean, in 2012 we lost Paul. He's still with us. He's still alive. It's just we had a disagreement. So we released Hollow Rhetoric, and in the same time we were trying to put tours together. We were trying to put dates together and get shows on the road. And every gig that we were booking, we were literally getting hit from Paul going, look, well, I'm going to be working, or I may be working, so I can't commit. And so for 6 months of shows that we were playing, we had different people filling in. we had Marty Kaufman from the band New Project, the guitarist from that band. We did a few shows with them, and he filled in on bass for Paul. We had Oz, who's the cousin of Yusuf in the band. He came in. He's the drummer from another band, and he came in and played bass for us on a few shows. And we got to the point where we're like, we can't continue a band where we've got a bass player who is not really getting involved in the writing, but doesn't want us to write the songs we were writing. He was like, I don't like that riff, but wasn't giving us anything new to work with. So we were like, come on, you've got to contribute, and you're saying you ain't got time to contribute. And then he couldn't commit to the shows. So I remember having this big band meeting about it, and he kind of said during the meeting, said, look, if you need to get another bass player in, then that's your choice. It's your decision of what you need to do. And we made the call and said, look, we need to get a new bass player in. It's as simple as that. And I was like told as the time that going, look, Paul's your closest mate, you should tell him. I remember telling him, and we never spoke after that. So we had, for whatever reason, I think it was taken personally that there was some sort of betrayal there. But we just couldn't move forward as a band like that. So we then got in Dave O'Sullivan, joined us on bass, and did a few shows with us throughout like early 2013, I think it was. Chemistry just wasn't quite there. Lovely guy, but it was very much like we talked about people coming in at the start of the hour about people being replaced. And he came in, he did a great job performing, but there was no real chemistry within us as a band in the writing. So we never really got past that with the writing stage. We was trying to write new material, and then Emma decided to step away from the band and just sort of said, look, I need to leave the band because, and Emma being the singer, this is quite a big hit to the band. So Emma stepped away from the band because I think she was pregnant at this point. And this would have been her second. I question mark myself at this point. My memory is not as good, but she was off, and yes, so she was off, second kid, and it was a case of she needed to take that time off. She had, was it a kid? I can't remember. there was a reason. There was something that was going on in her life that she needed to take a step away, and it wasn't like it was a break. She decided that there was too much going on, needed to step away from the band, so she left, leaving us. And then Dave O'Sullivan, he left, leaving it being me, Andy, and Yus left, so 2 guitarists and myself. And we were like, let's rebuild the band. Got James Marshall in to do vocals, and we were trying to rewrite the original songs and stuff, but we just never really clicked as a group. I think people's commitment had just kind of waned at that point, and that was such a battering that when the band at 2014, we kind of sort of said, look, let's just take a break from it all. And we did. We literally just stopped, and I stopped. I did a little bit of writing, but just decided that I was going to write for me, and it was great to do that. But I was at peace with it. I had no intention of getting back into music. So I did some drum covers. I was literally like, I'm not going to do bands anymore. I'm too old for this crap. I can't be putting myself through the stress mill of doing music again, because it was a stressful time. Because it was always about success. It was always about achieving something. And if we were doing bad gigs, or we're putting all this effort in and we were getting nothing back, I was stressed. I was like, we've got to do better. People's performances aren't. If we'd do a load of work in the rehearsal and it'd be great, and then we'd go to a gig and everything went out the window, and you're like, hang on, we worked on this. Why were we shit again? Why was this not good enough? And then at the end of 2022, obviously Telescribe formed. So that was kind of came together, and I was kind of thinking, okay, I could get back into doing some music, but I'm not doing like the every other week rehearsals and stuff like that. It's going to be as and when we can find time, but we're going to do that, and we're going to focus on the songwriting. We're going to focus. We're not going to be focused on the gigging, and we've achieved that. We didn't focus on gigging. We only played a couple of shows this year. I think we did 3 shows in 2024. Yeah, Club 85, 66 Bar, and the Melbourne Club, and that was all we've done, and that's fine. We weren't meant to be like a big focused live band, and we released the album this year. We put 8 singles out and 8 music videos, so really happy with our content creation for this year. Now going into 2025, we've got the whole process to start again, writing, recording, and I want us to have the same passion that we had in 2023 for the writing process. Currently that's not quite there, but that's a little bit of balance in between people playing in other bands. There's other things going on with their bands, and so there's a lot of writing, recording going on, so people have got to try and balance it between the workload between the bands. But I think if I get to the end of 2025 and it's not made any real headway, I don't think physically I could do it. And I think that's probably where I'm more at, is when you get to a certain stage where you're like, I can't physically perform at the level that I'd like to, without putting a huge amount of work into get myself into ship shape. So at the moment I can go several weeks without playing drums, like I can go a month without playing drums, go into the studio and still perform a Telescribe set without too many issues. I'll probably make a mistake on the first run through, but the second run through I'll probably get what I'm doing just through muscle memory. And you could say, well, you haven't written very technical songs then, but it's fine, because I never planned or pretend to be a great drummer, but I do go out there and try to put on the best show that I possibly can with the best sort of songs. But I do think I still feel it afterwards, and I know I could be a better drummer. I know I could be a better player, but I don't feel that I could be bothered enough. And that's the honest answer, be bothered enough to spend the time committing to becoming a great drummer. Because at the end of the day, I go, I don't see the point. What's the point? I don't want to make drumming be my life, my career. Question is what do I want my career to be? So that's been my big kind of thing this year, because we started the year with Telescribe. 2 years ago I started ADK with Andy and Kirk, and 2 years before that I started Dave Does. So they're all kind of elements, they're all brands in their own right, and it's kind of come to this now where we get to the end of 2024 going into 2025 at time of filming and recording, that I want ADK itself to become its own entity. ADK currently is seen as Andy, Dave and Kurt get together on a YouTube video or a Zoom call and talk about music or discuss something, and that's fine. It's an initial brand, but it's not the brand that I see the brand being. I see it as us being ambassadors of rock and metal in some form, but giving platforms for others to promote on. So it's just more like, here's a brand, not like a management company, not like a record label, but a kind of a central point. That's why we call it the network, because it's a case of bands getting together, promoters getting together, management companies showcasing stuff, showcasing content. But whilst we're there, we're also able to promote ourselves. So we're able to promote, if we come across a great band, we go, well, hang on, we're putting on live shows, because I'd love to expand the live shows roster to outside of our current, which is obviously the 66 Bar in Cambridge. We are looking at other venues, but until we can get the brand up, so I think probably at the moment we've only got about 700 followers on Facebook. I'd like to get that to, if I can get to end of 2025, 5,000 is my target. If I can get up to 5,000 followers on Facebook, I think we'll be in a position where we can expand the live shows to other venues and build that. But it takes a long time to book 12 shows, and actually it's only 11 shows, I should say, for 2025. It took months, mainly because I'm booking in advance. Trying to arrange schedules for everyone is a challenge. That's a huge challenge, trying to do that, because you kind of go, oh, this band sounds really good, they're a metalcore band, and this one's a metalcore band, so let's get the metalcore guys and get them on. And then you go, these 4 bands, brilliant, that'll be the right venue, that'll be the right show, this is going to work. And then one band goes, I can't do it. And then you look through the roster and go, well, I haven't got any other metalcore bands. Do I hold off, or do I put on a band that might sound similar? And then you get this end up having going, well, I've now got an alternative band playing on that bill. That doesn't make sense. And so you're then trying to tweak and getting back, and then just also bands are really, there are some bands that are brilliant at this, they get back to you straight away. There are other bands that you spend emails. Now sometimes the emails go into the spam folder, I have heard about that, so I can't blame bands for that. But then I will message bands like after a couple of days and say, guys, or be on like Facebook Messenger, guys, just check in, have you seen my email, check your spam folder, come back to me as soon as you can. And I get no response on those messages either, and you kind of then find out that I try WhatsApping them or whatever it is, and eventually someone will get back to me like 2 weeks later going, oh, sorry, we haven't checked our messages for a while, we're really bad at this. Yes, you are really bad at it. Check your messages. You're a band. Your whole purpose in life, apart from being to play music, is what you're obviously wanting to be. That's your main purpose, but your main thing that you're meant to be doing is driving your brand, which means Facebook and social medias you should be checking multiple times a day, responding to messages, making sure you've got content up there, and don't just post one picture in a week and go, oh, that'll do, I've posted about our gig, that'll make sure everyone sees it. No one's going to see it. You might get 2 or 3 people. What you need is people sharing it. What you need is regular content. You need to be going into all the Facebook groups posting it, just because it got approved and it's appeared on that Facebook page, unless someone is scrolling there and then at the moment, or Facebook does its random thing that it does, which is post it a couple of days later for some reason. It loves to post things like after the gigs happen, then it'll start promoting it. If that happens, then you just got to be on it. You've got to be on it. You got to. People say, oh yeah, but if you're posting so often, you're spamming people. You're a band. Your entire life is spamming people, to be quite honest. It's called getting your brand awareness. Got to get it out there. Unless you can find someone who's got a huge, if you can find an influencer who influences in your style, which is really weird in rock and metal, that there's very few people that I would class as influencers. But if you can find someone that can promote it, go for it. Right, we are almost out of time. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but what's people's thoughts of using, like you've got these cameo things, getting like famous musicians to just do a shout out about your band and then posting it on your socials? Can you do that? Is that worth doing? Everyone knows it would be cameo though. You'd all know it's a cameo thing. So is it going to be good to do, or is it a bad idea? I have no idea. But they're actually quite cheap. You can do them for like get 30 quid to get like a 2-minute thing from like Max Cavalera. I'm like, that's cheaper than doing a lot of other kind of promotion that you'll do, and you've got Max Cavalera doing it. So Let me know. I don't know. Well, that's it. That's our hour pretty much at the end. Thank you very much for talking or listening to me talk for the last hour. I have no idea actually what I covered in the last hour, and that's why it's music, life, and everything in between. It's been emotional, guys. It really has. Join me next week where I'll be talking about something. Yes, I say something because I have no idea. I never do. Literally, the decision of what I talked about today, I made that call as I was making the coffee before I walked in and pressed record. So, yeah, another hour of random ranting. Always good to listen to. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do like, share, subscribe. Leave me comments in the comments down below. I always enjoy reading those, and I always do try to respond. And if you're listening to us on ADK Rock Metal Radio, thank you for joining us on that. And make sure you check our schedule over on adkrockmetal.com for the what shows are on over this month. We will be posting the shows well in advance, so you'll get to see the whole month in ahead. And make sure you watch some of the different content on the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.